talk about pension and how to plan for retirement. My guest is seated. He's a financial analyst and CEO of Daffin Finance, Mr. Frank Kwachie. Remember, I went to him with a Susu box, a piggy bank, on our little money moments just last week, Thursday. And it's a pleasure to have him here in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a joy coming always to
Sure.
talk to you.
I think you gave me a tip that day on Thursday morning when I visited the office that ideally we should be thinking about pension at age 20.
Yeah.
But we don't. A lot of us don't.
Yeah. The reason why I said that is gradually or increasingly it's becoming clear that the onus of pension is shifting from corporate institutions or shifting from governments to individuals. If you are, I'll say, an economic historian and you trace how pensions or retirement started, initially it was what we call funded entirely by the government. You don't do any contribution. It's like you've worked so much, government thinks that, or your employer thinks that at the end of your work life, I have to give you X amount of money to continue your life. And it's becoming increasingly clear that, they are changing that gradually from they taking that on, but passing that responsibility on to individuals so that individuals can take ownership of their own retirement needs. So the pensions that people get, which is the amount of money that you get when you retire, gradually keeps changing. Some time back, it used to be what finance people will call defined benefits, where they give you X amount of money. They shifted from there to say now it's defined contribution. You contribute, and whatever your returns come up to, that's your own challenge or your own problem to deal with. And we've seen instances where what we call actuarial assumptions had to be changed or recalibrated because the assumptions on which those pensions were made are no longer tenable. Why am I saying that? I have read in recent times that with the passing of the new Pension Act, hitherto people were getting, average of 50% of your highest 3 salaries as pensions. But now the new law says that it's going to be 37.5%. But the question that I ask is that how many people even know how much they're going to be earning as pension? That's one thing. And the second question is that when do I become eligible? So people need to know about these things. And I believe that once the information gets to them, then they can plan better. Because it is believed widely, depending on where you find yourself in a way, that you might need between 80 to 90% of your retiring income during your pension. And if the thought hits you that, assuming that you don't have any other sources, and you're going to be getting about 37.5%, I think that then the onus is on you to think that if you cannot survive even with 100% now, and you might need 80 to 70, and all of a sudden you are told that you need less than 40%, you are going to be getting less than 40% from us, I think it might be a shock to you. So that's why I think that people should start thinking about it earlier in their lifetimes.
The practical thing is you work in the place, and a lot of us are on the Providence Fund,
yeah.
And then the SNITS contribution as well. Is that enough for an individual?
That is not enough. The reason why I say that is not enough is that SNIT might give you less, if for argument's sake, the 37.5% if you fall within people that are not covered by the old law of PNDC law 247, but you come under the new Act 766, you're getting 37%. You might have a second tier, but the question is that how many people even know how much return or what is going to be the total value of that investment.
Should we know?
You should know.
Is there something that we can easily
It is your
find
money.
out?
It is your money, and you should be ask some questions. You know, the challenge I have with our part of the world here is that sometimes when you ask questions, people think that you are, excuse me to say, you are up to something funny. But I believe that if it is your money, you must know what my money is going to be. And you must ask questions. For instance, if I am telling you that I'm taking 50 Ghana cedis of your money, where am I putting the money? How much is that money going to turn into maybe after serving you for 10, 15 years? What value is it going to be? If I add that up to my 37.5 that I'm getting from SNIT, would that be enough to give me the 70, between the 70, 80 or 90%, depending on your lifestyle, that you will need during your pension? So that you can then start making meaningful contribution or stepping up the monies that you might be putting aside on your own for your pensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's move to those who have their own businesses, and we're getting quite a lot of that these days. People say, I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own business. And I wonder how many of these people actually save towards pension.
I applaud them very much, and I think they're doing very well. Owning the business or having that desire to be an entrepreneur is not for the faint-hearted. What they do, on what I know in most cases, is that most people who are entrepreneurs don't retire. They keep going until they cannot go again. And recently, I've been reading something in a North American magazine on investments, where people have moved from Freedom 55 to Freedom 85. And Freedom 85 means that they think that the life expectancy has changed to over 90 years now. So they think that they can work up to about 85 years. They can keep going. And why am I saying so? I have seen entrepreneurs, even local entrepreneurs in Ghana, who are past the age of 60, 66, and they're still working. I was having a chat with one of them the other time. He says that he thinks that he's got more than maybe 15 years more that he can still work.
Okay.
So they don't shut down entirely. But those in what I call the regular workflow.
So that's where the problem is.
That's where the problem is. Because whether you believe it or not, come age 60, at best maybe 62 or 63, you'll be asked to leave. And the question then is that what are you going to do? Because you don't stop living when you go on retirement. I have seen people in recent time go past 75, 80. I've got aunties and I've got, uncles who have pushed beyond 80, and they are still what? Stronger. It means they've lived 20 years after they've retired. So the question is that the 20 years that you're going to be living, assuming that God is gracious to you, how are you going to make ends meet?
So let's take the structure as we have it now again. Beyond the providence, beyond what is taking from source to SNITs, what should I be doing again?
The individual needs to sit with an advisor. And the advisor, that's why I said general investment advice doesn't apply to everybody. Because, for instance, somebody will be lucky or fortunate to say that, to be working in an institution where it says that you can retire at age 70. Somebody, it will be 60 years. Some people, they can go ahead, like the example that I gave you, they can still push up to 80 if their strength can still carry them. So it's not one size fitting all. You need to sit with an advisor. Your age comes in. Within the age, I say that there's a generalization that within the age 20 to, let's say, 29, what type of investments can you be thinking about? Given the background also that this general theory in economics which talks about life cycle hypothesis, that when you start life, you'll be consuming more than you can save. So it gets to a point also in that same life cycle, in your prime years, where you'll be earning more than you're consuming. So then you can increase how much you can save.
Does it ever get to that?
It gets to that.
Where you're earning more than you're consuming?
Of course.
Okay, what age brackets is that?
I have told people that I mean, presumably, when you hit what we call the empty nest, that's your children are all out from your house. I mean, there are few mouths to feed now. You're living in maybe, you've downsized, like moved from maybe a 5-bedroom apartment to maybe a 2-bedroom house. Of course, if you're still working, you have now surplus compared to when you're paying maybe school fees, when you have mouths to feed and other things. So it's like the time comes.
Food.
Yes, the time comes. It's like when you start life, initially, you're buying baby food and other things. It gets to a point that the cycle changes. You now have to start giving them, I mean, maybe solid food and other things. But it's not going to continue forever. When they leave school, they start working. They are no longer your responsibility now. And in most cases, what people do is that now they'll be expecting their children even to come and give to them.
Yeah.
As a way of maybe saying thank you. So it gets to a point that you have more than you're going to be consuming. And that is where maybe you need to step up how much you can be putting aside.
Okay.
But it all comes down to sitting with an advisor and the advisor being able to look at it. It's just like, I tell people that we don't, like last time I was telling, we don't want to go to advisors. We only think that we have to go to them when it is really, really necessary.
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary.
Or when we have some money that we are considering putting somewhere.
You see, like last week we were talking about, you need to have, I don't want it to sound like the first time that I was being asked to buy insurance, the seller was trying to frighten me to say that, have you thought about it, that when you die, what is going to happen to your wife and children? I said, well, when I die, my wife is still working. I mean, she can still take care of herself. I don't want it to be like a frightening environment, but it's something that you have to look at it in real terms. Like, we are living longer. The first time these pensions ideas were proposed, life expectancy was about 45 years. Now we've passed that. I mean, even in Ghana, the number says that life expectancy is between 62 to 64, which I say that, well, that might be outdated because I've seen people going past that age in recent times. So maybe we need to maybe recalibrate the numbers again. And then that is where the actuarial assumptions that had informed maybe the pensions and the provident funds and all those things, all of a sudden we begin to look at them that it's no longer tenable.
Yeah.
Because now it's presumed that after 60 years, you might get pension for maybe 12 years up to about 72. But wait a minute, people are living past 72 years. So it means that actuarial assumption needs to be recalibrated to say that now people are going past 72, so what are we going to be doing?
So, you know, what we wanted to do, and I know that because of time, we will not be able to get into what we wanted to get into, but there's always another time for that. What can help you give me some solid answers? My age?
Your age is one factor, and what I call your risk tolerance. Your risk tolerance comes down to your ability to absorb risk.
Okay.
I mean, some people will tell you that, oh, I can take risk, but it's the ability, not the willingness. We need to look at
But how do you
the
determine that?
You answer a series of questions.
Okay.
I mean, and that aspect of finance is called behavioral finance.
Okay.
You are answering questions. By the time you finish answering the questions, we'll be able to tell whether this person is risk averse, this person is extremely risky, or this person is moderately risky.
Okay.
So based on that, we'll be able to tell and say, you can put Y amount of maybe your portfolio into stocks. You can put your portfolio into what we call bonds, fixed income. But I always tell people that all these investments are transits. When you get into pension, you need what I call the inflation protected income. Inflation is an element that will always be with us. The prices of goods today will not be the same as prices of goods tomorrow. You will need more money, all things being equal. So because you need more money than today, then it means that the incomes that you'll be earning when you are on pension should also be realistic or should have gone up in line with the inflationary conditions. And when we don't do that, that is where you hear that, oh, the pensions that people are getting are not anything to write home about. I have been in banking institutions where people come to the banking hall and sometimes you wonder all the time that they have spent working, this is all the pension that they are getting. And it becomes sad that I know some bankers have even sometimes gone out of their way to help those people because the money is just not enough. But they don't have a choice than to come for that amount of money. So it's like, that is the harsh reality that we have to come to terms with.
So when we sit with the board, and I give you my age, we assess my risk tolerance level.
That's it.
And then?
And then we'll then be coming to how much money do you have?
Okay.
Okay. Then the next question is that what assets do you have now? And going forward, assets.
Okay.
Going forward, when you retire, what will be the value of those assets?
Okay.
And then we talk about your liabilities or things that you might have to be paying. Then we come up to assess what we call the gap. What is the gap? Will your assets be enough to cover your expenses that you need? If it's going to be enough, then the gap is positive. But if the gap is negative, then we can say that, for argument's sake, Mama, you need about 100 Ghana cedis when you retire. And maybe we presume we use the same actuarial assumptions to say that, oh, you will live up to 80 years. So you retire 60, for the next 20 years, every month you will need X amount of money. So if we do the calculation, then we can tell you that from where you are, you need to be saving X amount of money going forward. And all things being equal, like the economists always say, we'll get the return on your investments to be able to match that.
Okay. But at this point, I should also tell you how much Providence have been able to accrue, right?
It's part
and
of
then
the assets,
the pension as well.
And then the pension.
So what do you say we do this in your boardroom on Wednesday?
We can take a look at it, but Wednesday might be pretty steep, but we can still look at it.
Yeah, we can plan towards something.
We can plan towards
I want us to finish this week.
Okay.
And I want about 5 volunteers, 5 people out there to join me. And let's put our assets on the line. Some of us don't have any assets, by the way. But we will go through, the processes and see how much, if what we have can actually take us, should we retire in the next 20 years or so. Okay.
Thank you.
But I'm super grateful for your time today, as always. You're really, really nice to us.
Thank you.
And we're grateful.
And a pleasure.
So thank you so
always.
much for time.
Right.
That's CEO, where's my papers, of Daffin Finance Company, Mr. Frank Kwachie, our guest on this pension conversation. We're super, super, super grateful. You can catch this conversation, and I'm personally going to repost it because we all have to begin to think and have these conversations. Up next, they are very young ladies, but they've decided, after they said they met a group of people who were barefooted, they decided to raise some funds and put some shoes on those foot. So we will talk about that and see how we can help. Stay with us.